Scary when I get too loud. Silence when I try speak out. Suggestive when I choose.
With Rahma Swale Mnaenda extension behind. All right. Naya Women and Leadership in Sports that I'm hosting will be here at the main hall. So the extension one, Doreen Okiri and Jambi June Waweru. So at least you can go to either of the rooms. Ama mkayapa na mimi, kuna Easter. Feel free to move anywhere, athletes, all right? Karibu sana. So let me have Eunice Dola, Roslyn Jerry, and Sylvia Kamau right here in front. Yeah, and the Oyster one is just next to the reception that is being hosted by Sylvia Matasi and Eunice Lumalas. Asante sana. I hope Doreen Okiri and Jambi and June Waweru have moved to the extension area. Sawa sawa. You can move to any of those places I've mentioned earlier. Great, because here I'll be talking about women and leadership in sports. Mnataka kukaa hapa? Okay. Great. Homeboys Television.
Is it a general talk or you want the questions? Do you have the questions?
I'll give you the.
No, we have.
Yeah, the ones.
Okay.
Yeah, we have some questions.
It's a discussion.
Yeah, it's a discussion. The system leadership.
We'll guide you. They need to go to the other side.
Okay, so you guys looks like you're comfortable here. Athletes, ni sawa. Wacha nikae wapi? Moderator ukaa pale. On the right hand. Great. We have someone to help us with type keeping.
Is your phone on silent?
Awesome, 1 hour. 1 hour. Great. So karibu sana to our session panel discussion here with my very able panel. With me here, football team coach, Eunice Dola. Karibu sana, let's appreciate her. From swimming, we have a sports administrator, Roslyn Jerry. Awesome. And then we have a sports consultant, Sylvia Kamau. And then, of course, we have Miss Lillian Mududa Waweru. Karibu sana. She's our chairperson for today. Great. So we'll go straight to the questions. Nitajaribu ujibu hasa zingine na Kiswahili so that everybody can follow through. Karibu sana. Wapigeni makofi our panelists for today. is a discussion. So the first question to Madam Lilian Mududa Wero, our chairperson. What is the sports leadership ecosystem in Kenya, and why is it hard for women to rise?
Thank you, Churchill. Sports ecosystem is that environment where we all do our sporting activities. It could be the field where we play, the federations where we belong, the boardrooms where sports is discussed. In our communities, the educational institutions, that is what we refer to as sports ecosystem. It's that environment where sports take place. Why is it difficult for women to rise in sports? Sports environment is uneven, as it is today in this country. We all know the playing field is not flat. It has a bit of mabonde and a milima, especially for women. And that is why we find it very difficult for women leaders to rise in sports. We have the norms, cultural, social, that impede our growth in sports. We have the Muslims, Christians. You find sometimes for a Muslim girl, you could have the talent, but the religious background where you come from becomes very difficult. It doesn't enable you to move and achieve your potential in sports. So that is an impediment, cultural norms and social norms. The other thing is the economical status of women generally. This also is a problem. You are in swimming, you are talented in swimming as a young girl in primary school, but it's almost impossible to buy swimming gear, sporting gear. Just you find to get what you need to go for a competition is so much money, it becomes impossible for your poor parent to afford. So that is an impediment for most of us. The other thing would be, for women, we also have lack of exposure in this environment of ours. The girl child is almost ignored by the media. Sorry, Churchill, but that is the truth. You will find where girls have excelled, there's competition for girls, and we have another youth competition for boys. All the media houses will run that side. The other side will be ignored. So that is an impediment for our growth in sports. Hence, leadership becomes a problem because leadership starts from the bottom, okay? You grow as a leader. So if you are not exposed as a child, how do we expect you to grow and become a leader later in life? You must have the exposure. You must have this mentorship. You must have the economic muscle to get whatever is needed for your growth in sport. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Is that why we have very small coverage when it comes to women football, and I'll be coming to the coach, compared to the real World Cup where men play? Jerry.
Can I answer that, Churchill?
Yes, please.
I think it's more biased against the feminine masculinity game, because a lot of the background we come from, if let's say it's football where we have a boys team and a girls team playing, the media tend to go to the boys team, not because they favor the boys, but we have this mentality that football is a game for the masculine gender. So, I mean, they will cover a game they think that is being played by the gender that owns it than the gender that doesn't own it. So you find that there's also media bias when it comes to certain games also, when it comes to certain games. Because if we're talking about something like gymnastics, they will cover gymnastics because they believe gymnastics is a feminine kind of game, but it's not football. So it's just media bias also based on the game.
So media plays a big role.
Yes, it does.
In this.
Yes,
Does it apply in swimming also?
Oh, yes, it does. I mean, we've had incidents in swimming where we have had boys who have broken the national record and the girls have broken the national records, and you find that the media are actually running to interview the boys who have broken the national record than even interviewing the girls. Then again, there's also the challenge of, even if it's international meets, if you look at most of the swimming teams, they have more boys than they have girls. So it's actually gender bias. And it comes right from the roots of the federations. So it has got nothing to do with how we are brought up, because sports falls under the federation. So it's gender bias from the federations also.
I can't wait to ask you about the family roles they play, because I want to know how expensive this swimming, why parents would choose to support a boy rather than a girl. But hold that thought. Allow me to go to Eunice Dollar, who's a football coach. Pigieni makofi Eunice Dollar. Zamani, since I knew, wasichana walikuwa wanafundishwa mpira na coaches wanaume. Has that affected in any way, and how is it different now that you're a football coach?
Thank you so much, Churchill. I think I would want to contribute to say that today the Federation has tried to actually bring women leaders in football. And for the past 3 years, we've seen Women's League running. We've seen the Division 1 actually running.
You can bring the microphone a bit closer.
Okay, sorry.
Beautiful, yeah.
We've seen the introduction of Division 1. We've seen the introduction of regional leagues. We've seen the county leagues picking up. The challenge that we have today is female coaches. You will find that Football Kenya Federation has organized for a coaching course for female coaches, but very few of them will turn up. But again, at times, the Federation organizes for coaching courses for all coaches. That means that even women are invited. In one instance case, in the deep rural village in Bondo, I'm also an instructor, so I actually went there to instruct coaches. Unfortunately, this course was sponsored by the county government, but there was no single lady coach that attended this course. So the coaching side of it, when it comes to women football, women teams, we have men dominating the coaching side. But luckily enough today, the Federation has insisted, I think it was something that was brought up recently, that for any football women team that is participating in the league, there has to be a female coach or a female administrator to make sure that issues of girl-child empowerment are encompassed into the coaching of the girls.
Thank you so much. I was watching the Africa Cup of Nations, and Cameroon is my team. And if you look around, most teams that have made it to Africa Cup of Nations are being coached by whites, and I'm yet to see a female coach. Is it that you can't train boys? That is one. And two, do you have some hesitation when you say I'm a football coach and parents are like, apana, lakini vijana wangu nataka wakochiwe na coach. Nataka wakuwe na coach.
Yes, coach.
I think I will answer that. Allow me to answer that.
Yeah.
For many years, we've not gotten the opportunity as female coaches to coach the boys' side. We have tried to come in, but it's been a little bit difficult because of the dominance, the male dominance in the football sport. So what we have done, myself, I coach kids. I coach kids, both boys and girls, but I also have a girls' team. So I've decided to also bring in boys, because when you coach girls in a particular field, their boys will always come. They will always come to look, and they'll somehow want to play. So we have given them the opportunity to also play with the girls. But as we continue, I think I'll tell you the benefit of doing that. So far, we've seen some benefit of letting girls play with boys in the same field, train with them, and also learn from one another.
Great, I'm following through. Now, Madam Chair, Even our Premier League teams, our local football teams, you hardly have female coaches. Do we have a deficit there?
Thanks, Churchill. I think she said it all, that football field is male-dominated. So getting space may not be very easy, but as women, we are trying. You can see she's seated here. She's an instructor. She's a coach. We are trying to penetrate that field that has been dominated by men for a long time. I believe even Kenya, the disbanded FKF had a woman vice president. And that's an achievement for women because they are moving forward. They are getting there.
Are you talking about the affirmative action?
Affirmative action, you may call it so, but women in their own right are trying their best to penetrate the areas which otherwise were not, they were not permitted to, for lack of a better word, not permitted to venture into.
Stereotyping.
Yes, stereotyping.
And that's why we come to Sylvia Kamau, who is a sports consultant. Has affirmative action succeeded? And what needs to be improved in it, or does it need an overhaul?
Thank you. I think affirmative action has succeeded on paper. On paper and on legislation, it's there. And you can see there's an effort to have documents that require that to happen. But I don't think it has been implemented. So if you look at the different federations, unions, and sports organizations, women, first and foremost, women, we pose the first challenge towards our leadership. We never offer ourselves for leadership positions. So you will find like there's a federation that's having elections. The women will sit back and wait for co-option. Or those are the two instances. So they'll sit back and wait for co-option. I think women need to step up into the podium, step up to the podium and offer themselves for the executive positions. We were told in the morning that there's only one president, federation president who's a woman. Why can't more women offer themselves? So affirmative action is there on paper. We allow ourselves to be given co-option positions, women rep in the different federations. I think, okay, it's a good step. It brings the women to the table, but the women need to also move forward and take more responsibilities. In terms of having it more like, cemented in our organization, in our sports organizations, I think the Ministry of Sports has a very big role to play in it. And in two ways. One is demand implementation from all the sporting organizations. Yeah. So demand that we are not just installing women so that we can be seen we've installed women, but give women opportunities. We are all from different federations and athletes are there. We encounter different challenges when we decide to like vie for a position, for example. I want to vie for a presidency. There are those negative norms that are used to attack the women. And so the women end up shying away from that. Some of the tough women hang in there and they move forward. So I think the ministry needs to demand that all federations and sporting organizations should implement the affirmative action. The second one is that the ministry, again, should demand that all federations and sporting organizations should include or adopt the Sexual Harassment Act and the Children's Act in their constitutions or in their documents, their legal manuals or whatever it is. These two acts are key in terms of leveling the field. And so if they are implemented, of course now the perpetrators, for lack of a better word, or the women cease to be victims. Because now there's legislation that actually allows you to be on the stage by right and by merit and not by being given freebies, for lack of a better word. Again, like we've already picked our chairman, our secretary, our vice. So there's like a women rep position there. Come and get. So these two acts will ensure that the field is level all the way from the athlete all the way to the leaders up there. Because I think leadership positions are built when you're an athlete. So when you become a captain, you build your leadership skills as you grow up the ranks. And once you retire, you now go into management. Yes.
Do you think we have proper structures in our different disciplines in sports?
I think, okay, we have good intentions. So you will find that most sporting organizations have constitutions. Some of these constitutions, and especially with the pressure that the registrar has been putting, have tried to align with the Sports Act. Yeah. Yes. So we do have documents on paper. But I think the question is, do we implement them?
Do we implement?
Yes. Do we implement them? So you will, for example, like this affirmative thing, it's there on paper. But do we implement it? Do we have the goodwill to implement it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
or to push it, or to allocate resources to something, to allocate resources towards that effort. Do we do that?
Great.
I think not.
Great.
Yes.
So that's the question that goes begging. I'll be coming back to you, Madam Chairperson. Someone said the reason why, for instance, if you take Harambee Stars, they haven't qualified for anything. They are selling jugukaranga huko nini. Is because we don't have structures from under 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. But right now, we need to go back to Njeri, who's a parent and ardent follower, and she's smack in the middle of swim. Number one, how expensive is this swimming? And what's the role of the federation matters swimming? And we've done some amazing job in terms of swimming. So who has put the hard work?
Let me first add on to something that Sylvia has said about our federation constitution. For the longest time, our constitutions are only aligned to the Sports Act and the international constitution. So basically, when we talk about gender violence, we do not even have our local federation constitution has not adapted the mechanism that will protect our children from being molested or even experiencing sexual harassment. And we have had that a lot in swimming. So basically what normally happens is that the fact that we do not have those acts in our constitution, the officials find ways and means of getting away from the investigations. And I even remember the DPP saying that the challenge they have with gender GBV in sports is because it is so hard to prosecute these cases because there's a lot of cover-ups even in the federation. So you find, and the other thing is, the reason even why women will not take up leadership roles is that the fact that the federation does not protect them and they can do whatever they do, so they shy away from these leadership positions because they are not protected. So with the Kenya Swimming Federation, I sat in the governance committee, and one of the things that we really insisted on adapting was the Sexual Offences Act and the Children's Act. And the reason why I say the Sexual Offences Act and the Children's Act is that there is no sport that starts with a 16-year-old. Most sports actually have underaged children. From let's say the ages of 9 is when these children, like in swimming, competitive swimming is actually, they start at the age of 9. So you can imagine if you do not have a mechanism that is protecting these children under the laws of your country, then these officials will continue getting away. So one of the recommendations that we have insisted on is that we asked the Ministry of Sports to make sure that those two acts are adapted in all the federation constitution. That way, even when someone is prosecuted or persecuted or whatever, there's a mechanism already in the federation that allows the DPP to come in under those Sexual Offences Act and the Children's Act to now to do up. And then the other thing is the cover-up actually happens inside the federations. Please don't forget, Churchill, majority of the officials in all federations are actually men. So, and then the mechanisms have not been set up in such a way that when this woman has, when these offenses happen, who are you going to sue? You're going to sue the same officials? So the cover-ups of these sexual offenses and gender violence actually start from the federation level, which makes it very difficult for even the DPP to prosecute. Now, let me come back to your question about expense. Wow, I don't think there's any sport that is not expensive. But the fact that our federations are so disorganized, and I'm not ashamed to say that, then, and you know, we have had incidents of lack of accountability, lack of transparency. In fact, we are very happy now that we have actually seen the Ministry of Sports telling federations, get your act together, or we are not going to fund you. But now in the sport of swimming, I don't think we've ever known any funding from the government. So the parents still pocket, I mean, you're going to represent your country, but you're actually paying for everything. So you're paying for the airfare, you're paying for everything. But then again, do we blame the parents, or do we blame the officials? Again, mechanism and systems have allowed the officials to exploit the parents by always saying, we don't have a federation, but you want your child to swim. I mean, sport in a child brings a lot of discipline, Churchill. I'm telling you, kids who have grown up in sport, they grow up with a lot of discipline, consistency, time management. It teaches them the life simple tools that we parents can't teach. So you can imagine you want to put your child in that sport. So you have to keep digging deeper from your pockets. So at the end of the day, yes, it's expensive, and yes, do we have a choice right now? No. Why? Because we do not have proper systems put in place by the same federations to at least give us some leeway in terms of expenses.
Thank you very much, Jerry. That's well put. And of course, I'll be coming back to you in a short while. Let me go back to my coach, Rose Eunice Dolly. I grew up in Makongeni. When I came to Nairobi, there was a team called Makolanders. Walikuwa wanacheza mpira sana. Some girls, they used to play all the way to Norway. Then at some point, those girls, because they used to train behind my house. Nyumba yangu ilikuwa ya 2,300 na bado nilikuwa na rent arrears. So at some point, I stopped seeing them play. Then I asked the coach, asichana walienda hapi? Akaniambia, I say, si wako tu mitaani. And some our whole generation of footballers was lost. How difficult is it to become a formidable football player ukiwa umetoka mtaani? Girl tu wa kawaida, a girl who's 9 years to get to 18 years, and you know there are so many opportunities once they start playing international. How difficult is it kutoka 9 years mpaka fike 18 kuwa pro?
Thank you so much, Churchill. It is not so easy for girls who come from the slums to excel in sports. But ironically, they're the ones who, again, a few of them excel in sports today. So in the case of Makolandos, I think they came back and they're still playing. The girls may have disappeared, but the club is still there. I think what happens, and I think we all need to appreciate this, that in our own sports clubs, in our own sports organizations, we are only playing sports for competition purposes, nothing much. So if something is introduced, if life skills is introduced, if issues of health, issues of education are enhanced into the play, then we'll have sustainability of these girls and these teams. And today we should not be talking about lack of female coaches if this was actually done. So I think the systems that have been put in place in the women teams are not sustainable, are not driving sustainability, are not bringing the best in the player. It is only looking at competition. How good is Makolandos, for example, performing in the league? They're forgetting about that player. What about this player who comes to train? What about this player who plays for us? Are they eating something back at home? Is she able to pay school fees? Are the parents able to pay school fees? Is she able to have a decent school uniform to encourage her to continue with education? Is somebody encouraging them to go back to school? So if you're not seeing those girls today, then life might have swallowed them in the way somewhere. I had a team of girls in Kisumu. Actually, it's me who started football in Kisumu sometime in 2003. Women football, it was no longer there. So it's me who started women football in Kisumu. And I had over 64 girls.
You need to clap for her. She started
women football
in Kisumu.
In Kisumu. So I had more than 60 girls coming to train every day from different slums. Sustaining them and managing them was not so easy. But I tried until a problem came up. And the coaches who are helping me to train these girls decided to live with a few girls who were under some correction. So he decided to form another team with girls who are facing a difficult process that we were trying to sort out their issue. And today, if we follow up the lives of those girls, it is so miserable. It is so painful to meet them. Some of them were very good footballers. They have lost it in life. They're nowhere. But a few of them who stuck and accepted correction, some of them are actually playing for the national team. One of my girls is the captain of women rugby, Philadelphia Orlando. Philadelphia started at my club as a footballer. And I'm so happy that she grew up and she took up the leadership role at Kenya Rugby Union. On the side, we formed something called Kenya National Football Coaches Association. It's called KenFoca in the country. I sit in the committee, the interim committee of KenFoca that has almost all coaches in the country. And we have a few ladies coaches also in the group, but in the committee we are only 2. And there's a big problem in terms of us trying to bring some change, us trying to participate as women coaches in these committees, and us trying to promote women football in this committee and in this group that is male-dominated. So just to come back to your question, we are losing these girls because we don't have systems. We only call them to play the sport and they go back home. We don't care about what problems they're going through every day, what problems affect them as girls who are actually growing up and experiencing certain changes in their body, in their lives. Nobody is there to take care of them. And if that happens, then if that can happen, then I think we can have a sustainable sport in this country.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courses. Madam Chair, Kenya is not the richest country we have. The poverty levels, you know where they are. Realistically, forget about the expressway. So, what's the government doing and the federation to reduce this poverty level? And is that the biggest enemy when it comes to gender-based violence in sports? Because you feel, I'd rather stick it here instead of saying what's affecting me, because this is the only way I'm going to make it out of the slums.
Kenya, you say, is not one of the richest. I want to say Kenya is rich. It's not, it's not a very poor country. It is not.
Yes, differently.
Yes, it's not rich. It's not. It's not poor, because I believe systems put in place, order put in place, sports can be financed from the lowest level. It can be done. What is ailing us, and we keep on talking about resources. I believe the resources are there, but how are they distributed? Okay? I'll talk for women because I'm a woman. And I believe that the women's sports is not given adequate attention and adequate resources. I want to give you an example. And this example I'm about to give, I one time asked our former PS sports, Mr. Kaberia. He came to visit us. We were camping in Kasarani. A year before, we had AFCON championship in Cairo. Kenya football, Harambee Stars went. Harambee Stars was given about 200 million or 140 million, something like that. And Malkia Strikers were in the same country, same city, playing AFCON. We were given 0. We came back with a silver medal. Harambee Stars left at the preliminaries, having been given over 100 million, and Malkia Strikers given nothing. So when you say there's no money, I don't believe what you're saying, because there was enough money to give the men and no money to give to the women. When we arrived with our silver medal, there was nobody even to receive us. There was not even the media to cover us. So those are the biases we are talking about. Money or no money, if things are put in place, even the corporate world can assist, provided you have a system. and order in the federations, and even the ministry assisting us. Believe you me, there are many organizations who would come forward to support sports in this country. So the money is not the issue.
Money is not the issue, it's the distribution.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And thank you so much on Malkia Strikers them into the World Cup. Can you imagine Harambee Stars, the day they make it to the World Cup? Our athletes keep winning gold medal for us. Like, let's appreciate all the athletes. Maze Makovi, Maze, you put us right there. We really do appreciate when our anthem is sung so many times. We really do appreciate. Okay? Now, into our final question, and then I'll have you do the final remarks to Sylvia Kamau. Women and family roles. How can women have dual careers, being mothers and leaders in sports? Here's a mom.
Thank you. As you can see, the rest of my colleagues are all laughing. So when we saw this question, we were like, why are you asking us this question? Women have been multitasking from those days. Our mothers, our grandmothers, they used to go to the shamba and still give birth and take care of 10 children. So why are you asking us if we can have a career and run sports? We are doing that.
It's possible.
It is very possible. It is happening. It's just that we are not recognized, or we are not on the platform that everybody sees. So when there is a president who's running sports, it's look like, wow, he's coming from the office and he's going to run sports. But ladies are there and doing the same thing. We have coaches. We do whatever it is we do during the day, and in the evening we go to the field and coach. And at night, we go home and become mothers and do homework. CBC metushika ko. We still go back and do. So this is not a question. And I'll tell the athletes, they're still young. If you take, for example, like the academic environment, we're getting scholarships, sports scholarships. And you must maintain your grades, and you must maintain good performance in school. I mean, in the field and in class. So that is also multitasking. She said that if you play sport, it impacts on you the values you need, time management, discipline, those things. So sports, multitasking, we can actually be mothers, have proper families, raise upstanding citizens who become successful, and still have very successful sports careers, either as an athlete or as a leader or supporting cast of sports. Because, again, I believe that leadership in sports is not necessarily in the mainstream. We have legal sports law, we have sports marketing, we have all these other professions that fill into sports. So they are also giving back to sports, and they're doing whatever the profession they have. So it is possible for us to run sports and be mothers.
You can
and have a career. So it's three-prong actually.
Yes.
We can have our profession, our private one, run sports, and be a mother. Yes.
And I like the introduction. You've been multitasking.
Yes.
Since time immemorial. And I'll be coming to the chair and, of course, coaches. And Jerry, how do we put more women in leadership positions matter sports? What should we do? What do we need to do ASAP?
First and foremost, we need to put proper systems for the women. We need to protect the women, because a lot of women shy off because of not being protected by the law and also by, let's say, just the system. Let me put it the system. Because that way, and then we also need to create a safe space for women to talk. Because a lot of women, especially in sports, don't talk because they shy away from saying, I have been sexually harassed or I have been asked for a sexual favor so that I can be a coach. Sometimes it actually does happen, but you can imagine the trauma that woman carries to the point whereby she'll only be a coach. She will not even want to elevate herself to even an executive position, because the other thing is if she tries to go against the men who actually did what they did, then they bring out her dirt. Which is actually the cases that we've had. We've had incidents where women take up roles, they want to take up, let's say, like an executive position, and I'm telling you the dirt that is brought out when she was a coach, this is what she did. They don't have a safe haven to talk. And then we also need to put up a system where it doesn't, if you actually did sexually harass this woman when she was a coach and she's able to speak, then you should be prosecuted, persecuted, or whatever action needs to be taken. So one of the things for the women to be able to take up leadership roles is that we have to protect the women. Because I'll tell you, Churchill, for free, women in sports are suffering silently. You sit with these women and you listen, because I've sat with women and I've told them, you are a really nice coach. You have the experience. I mean, you're a coach who's had 20 to 25 years of experience. Why are you unable to step up and take up a leadership role? And when they open up to you, you realize they do not want their dirt that was done maybe when they were in the ages of 25, 26, to be brought up when they are now married, and then we have social media. And some of these perpetrators are very bad because they do actually use the social media to bring out that dirt. So I think we need to first and foremost bring out laws that protect the women. And like I said, the only way to do it is to actually adapt the Sexual Offences Act in all the federation constitutions. So in the sense that, because you see also when it comes to prosecution for these offenses, they can't go to Milimani. They'll have to go to Milimani. Some of them can't even afford the legal fees of a lawyer. So you see, we don't have proper systems for these women to speak up, to be able to take up those roles. So the only way we can do this is, first and foremost, make sure that our women are protected. That is one very key important thing. Secondly, we need to have the women who are currently leaders right now to start mentoring a woman who will take up after her in that position, because that's another thing we lack. If we look at the elections for federations, Churchill, I am telling you, it's a very vicious cycle, because the men gang up and they will support their man. But for us women, again, we don't have that strength and we don't have that empowerment to be able to stand up and say, we are supporting you, we are going with you, because of so many other hurdles and so many other red tapes that are put in there that we are unable to do that. So I think the creation of a safe haven for women to speak, and especially in sports, because I'll tell you, I know a lot of women in sports are suffering, and they have the capacity, they have the capability to take up leadership roles, but the system really cuts them down. So systems need to be set up for our women to be able to stand up and say, you know what, under the Sexual Offences Act, you did this to me, and now that I'm taking up a position and you want to bring out that dirt, then I'm going to bring it out. I mean, it's a two-way thing, so right. Yeah.
Awesome. And I like something you said about social media, and I'll be coming to you, Sylvia. I know you can't wait to talk about that. But allow me to go back to Coach Eunice. How do you ensure we have more female coaches in your field?
Thank you so much, Churchill. I think it's been a discussion in our federation, and because we already have the vice president in the federation who takes care of women football in the country. So it's been on our meetings, our discussions, our workshops, that how can we bring in more female coaches. But now on my side, I will answer this because I've tried it and it's working. I've tried to scout for the former players who already understand the game of football and can easily come to be trained as coaches. This is not so easy because the few that I got, I only managed to sustain 2. The other 3 left. And if we try following them, we cannot get them. Unfortunately, the federation gives them the training to go and train and coach in the field. But after they've been trained, they disappear. Some of them get married, some of them get children, and some of them, like their husbands, cannot allow them to come and coach. So we keep on losing them. So today we are looking at these players. How can we ensure that these players are sustained into playing and to a level that they can be leaders, they can be trained as coaches at such a time that they can no longer play the game of football or any other sport. So I also played hockey, and I sit in the Nyanza Hockey Union as the vice chairperson. And our chairperson died, and because we were 2 vice chairpersons, there was a man and a woman, and the committee decided to push the male vice chairperson as the chairperson of Nyanza Hockey Union. So I asked them, what criteria did you use? Because we are 2, I'm a woman and you're a man. what was so difficult to have me become the chairperson of Nyanza Hockey Union. So it's still being debated on, and I hope if I push, if I keep quiet, then I don't get it. But if I push it, I'll get it, because I know I have all it takes. I played the sport, and I have the capability of management and all that. So to sustain female coaches, even in hockey, is to bring the former players together and to start showing them the value that they will get for being a coach or something like that. So again, Sylvia has talked about role modeling. I think it's very important. If they see me still in sports, then some of them wants to come in. Some of them wants to know, like, why are you still in sports and you're a mother and you're also doing business? So what is it? So I think if they see more role models, if they see more mentors, if they see more of us who played the sport and are still in the sport, then they will start coming in. So that is what we are actually doing. A few of us who are still in coaching field as female coaches, we are trying to bring in the others to come in.
And thank you so much, Coach Eunice. Clearly, you're a jack of all trade, a master of all. Madam Chair, I want you to have a final word, because I also need to hear your part when it comes to people with disability. Allow me to drag you back to Sylvia. Tell me about social media. How serious is this? And how can we use social media positively for the sport?
Before I address the social media, I wanted to add to Jerry's point of why women don't take leadership positions. There's something called stereotyping. Stereotyping really affects women. It's generational over the years, and it's a form of discrimination. So what's stereotyping? For example, there's that mentality that women cannot, what you started when you discussed soccer. Soccer is seen like a sport for the men. So they can't even imagine that they can have a president or even a secretary who's a female. So those kinds of things, stereotyping leads to a lot of things, inequality in resource management, what it's called mentorship, leadership positions. So it hinders women from actually being positioned in aspects where they could take up leadership roles. So we go back to social media. Social media has become very powerful. These days, social media can either destroy you or build you. If you look at all sporting organizations, personalities, brands, we all have gone into social media. It is a tool, it's a marketing tool. And I think every federation or every modern sporting organization has gone to that way. It's cheaper than the traditional marketing ways we used to do. It's easier to have a following. It's quantifiable. So social media is key, and it's big if used well. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know Jerry has raised a lot of points here. It needs a whole day to discuss. You'll have something to say. I don't know how many minutes I have, but Madam Chair, you have so much on your plate. Where do we start? Matters leadership.
Allow me to just add on to what Dola said about why it is difficult to bring more women, to bring more women to coaching or refereeing or just generally officiating in sports. Some of these causes are not cheap. And again, mentorship is lacking. Let me discuss mentorship before I go to the expenses of training as a coach or a referee. We need to put some systems in place to transition from player to coaches and to leadership positions in sports. You find most of our girls leave sports and they leave it there. After playing, that's it, because they were not given mentorship. They were not encouraged to go for leadership, maybe courses or seminars or trainings. So I think what we need to do first is, as we transition from playing, is there room for some of these people who are interested? Are they encouraged to take up coaching courses or referees or other leadership positions in sports? If we do that, if stakeholders and the Ministry of Sports can come together and see how this can be done, then I'm sure we'll get many coaches, many referees. When you come to the expenses, some of these courses are even done outside the country. You find somebody is required to get accommodation, get training fees, get transport. That money is not there. What does the federation do? They send you a letter and tell you there's a course in Sudan, or there's a course in Tanzania, or whatever it is. Now, you as a player who is interested, where do you start from? There's no mechanism of raising that money. Therefore, it becomes very difficult. So what we need to do as federations is to look at means and ways of transition from player to the other levels of leadership in sports across the board. What was your question again?
So how do we get more women in leadership positions?
How
You're
to-
a leader on your own right.
I think it has been said by my ladies here that playing field is not even. We need to flatten it. We need to stop stereotyping women. We need mentorship for women as they grow out of active sports. We need to mentor them. We were told by Madame Kilimo that when she was in Standard 4, she looked at Joyce Alwach and she was told she's driving a big car and she's uncircumcised. Then she decided she would never be circumcised because she wanted to be like Joyce Alwach. Now, when you look at our sporting industry, the role models, you can only talk of somebody like Catherine Dereba at the moment and maybe Tekla Rurupe, but we need more, where our young girls can look up to them and say, I want to be like Catherine Dereba. I want to be like Tekla Rurupe. I want to be like so-and-so. How do you do that? By giving these girls an environment that is conducive, giving them skills, encourage them, train them, and mentor them so that we can get more coaches and officials going forward.
Great. Now, cases to do with disability, and I'm glad we have a national chair here. Agnes, karibu sana. Let's appreciate her. Karibu sana, Madam Chair. So how do we create a space for them to just open up and talk about some of these issues that are affecting them, matters, gender-based violence in sports? Or you've never had any case?
I think that's why we're here, but I think I will let Njeri pick that from me.
Even she can also say something before we hear from you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. So, thank you.
You might need to put our mic on. It's off.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, homeboys.
Thank you so much, Churchill. Maybe as much as we are talking about disability, I think for disability it's very difficult because really the ground is not really leveled for us. There's a lot of discrimination and we go through a lot of challenges with our athletes in terms of even leadership. Myself as a leader, because I was an athlete. When I got to Paralympic as an athlete. And later I decided I would go for leadership position, whereby after 2 years being an athlete, I decided to go for leadership position, and I got to be the treasurer of Kenya National Paralympic. From there, I noticed there were so many things that were going on, and my people were not ready to talk. The ladies were not ready to talk, and they were not even prepared that maybe a lady could be a leader. So I decided to go for that position, and even as much as I'm there, There's so many things that are going on with disability, but we are trying, and I believe in, I'm a fighter myself. I believe to fight and get it. Whatever I want to go for, I'll always get it, because I believe in myself, and I know as much as I'm disabled, I can achieve something. So we are really trying it.
Yes, and just before I let you go, Madam Chair, and I have my panelists say their final word, the reason I asked you is because my dad was also disabled. Now, that aside, I see on the streets here in Nairobi, every time you pass by, you see these people who are able differently being taken advantage of. Why is it that old ladies who are begging have little children strapped on their back? What do you do, or what avenue do you create so that they can express themselves? Because those are on the street. But now, the ones who are talented, because these are very talented people, how do you make sure that they are not taken advantage of?
Okay, most of them actually come from poor backgrounds. So at times, maybe to earn maybe something or to put something on your table, sometimes these men actually use you, because they tend to think that maybe as much as you're disabled, he's safe going with you other than going with the able-bodied. So he'll come for you, they'll cheat you with a few, with some money. So you find that these people are actually used, even in terms of even sports. Here in our sports, we've noticed that. Even, in fact, that's what made me to be the chair, so that I could advocate for the ladies who are there, because you're normally asked for those favors before you're taken for a trip. That's what used to happen. And I remember I was a victim of such, and luckily enough, I could talk, whereby I even came back. When I came back to the country, I told the PS, and also the CS who was there. We tried talking it out, but later it was not solved. But after that, I decided now I'll be the chair, but I normally try to avoid such things so that they cannot happen. But most of these people, maybe you see even in the streets, they are used even by their relatives, because you have a child with disability. Most of the time, this child will be left at home, maybe in the care of relatives, not knowing what the relatives will do. So sometimes you find even relatives turning back to those children that they're being left to take care of. And then that's what happens, and that's what leads to maybe them having children and all that.
Great, thank you, and good luck as we formulate on best ways possible to curb that. All right, now before I give my panelists to say the final word, allow me to invite Miriam from Deaf Olympics to say a word. Thank you so much for being part of this conference, and it's been great to have you the entire morning. Miriam, so someone might have to translate for us. Great, so we have less than 5 minutes, so give it 2. All right, great. So you'll translate? All right.
First of all, I want to thank the panelists and also Churchill for moderating this session and to give me this opportunity to speak. As you've heard, my name is Miriam Opondo, in Deaf Olympic Sports. And also I'm the Secretary General for the Confederation of the African Deaf Sports. I'm glad to hear about this discussion on how we can improve participation of women with disabilities in leadership positions. And I'm glad I'm following up on my colleague who's spoken before, because when we speak about disabilities, we need to understand that we have Paralympics and Deaf Olympics. So as far as deaf sports is concerned, my views is that this is a society where men feel they have more power. They know that they're very active and women are left behind and they shy off. because in the leadership of the sports in the country, I can tell you that in Kenya, we only have 3 women sports in the sports leadership, because most of them are deaf men who are leaders. And why is this happening? Women are really shying off because of what? 1, they fear, and 2, poverty. When it comes to sports election, you know that some people usually have the resources to facilitate for them to win. And women don't have those resources and they cannot vie for these positions. It becomes very hard. So as we try to think about how we need to improve women in leadership in sports, we talk about empowerment of the girl child and empowering the girl child, but where are we forgetting about the boy child? We also need to include them, because without empowering the two at the same time, in future there will be no significant change. Because who's discriminating against the girl child? It's the boy child. So I think that it's really important to empower the two, both the boy child and the girl child, to understand that that the boys can give girls opportunities to lead, so that there is equality in leadership. But if you focus on just one gender, the girl child, it will not work. So we need to empower both of them, especially the boys, to understand that the girl child can also be leaders in the society. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Miriam. My goodness. Oh, final one, Chairman, I know. Can you imagine how difficult it is to explain if an athlete has been sexually violated and you're deaf and you're trying to explain your situation? Can you see how difficult that is? Final word, Sylvia.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think the final word and the take home from this is that women, we have the strength, we have the power, we don't need to be empowered. We need to step up, we need to come up and offer ourselves. There are different roles we can play. So whatever your capacity is as an athlete or whatever it is, let's come up, offer ourselves. We can't make the change if we don't offer ourselves. We can't ask for equality if we are not there to be given. We can't ask for resources to be allocated equally if the girl side has fewer numbers than the boy side. So let us first take it from ourselves. Let's come up. It's a murky environment sometimes. It is hard, but nothing good comes from anything easy. So let's come up, step up and be strong enough to take up these positions and not wait to be given the final positions.